Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Diamond Discussion. I am your host, Demetrius Woods, and today I have a really dear, beloved friend and Taylor Fernandes O'Brien joining me, and we're going to jump right into the national championship portion of the Women's College World Series. So without further ado, let's get it started. All right, guys, welcome to the show. Fern, I'm going to reference you as Fern. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fun.
All right, cool. So welcome to the show, finally.
Finally.
We've talked about this for a while.
We did.
And as I was thinking about this morning, I was like, we kind of dreamt this dream a couple years ago.
Yeah, we were on a golf course.
Yep. Before you left town. So,
Yep.
So guys, Taylor / Fern. She is, my gosh, we've known each other for now, what, 4 years?
Yeah.
Something like that, maybe.
Yeah. 3-4 years.
And we met in Eatonton. So most of you who watch the show, you know I'm from Eatonton, Georgia, Putnam County, and she coached softball at Putnam County High School, and we connected through one of our ball players that we shared in Rachel Hawkins.
Yep.
Who is a trip.
Yep.
Have you spoken to her much lately?
We talk every now and then,
Okay.
like on Snapchat.
I know
Yeah.
She's inching into the married life pretty soon, it sounds like. So that's exciting. A little shout out to Rach.
Yep.
But so tell us what you're up to now. I mean, so you were in Eatonton for a while, and then you moved over to Carolina.
Yep.
There were some years there where you had some challenges, obviously, with work, right? I mean, you were trying to find a fit. So take us through that a little bit, and then to a little bit about where you are now.
So, I mean, as you know, ultimately why I left Putnam was to go get married.
Right.
I had to choose between my job and, you know, the rest of my life with somebody that I wanted to be with, somebody that I loved dearly.
Yep.
So I had to up and move to South Carolina. Yeah, there were challenges, there were tribulations, but I made it through. And like I told you at the game, I don't think I would have the job I have now if it wasn't for leaving when I did. I mean, it was hard. I mean, I cried every day. I mean, it was very hard for me to come to grasp with loving Putnam, loving where I live, loving the people. I mean, I was getting somewhere spiritually. I was getting somewhere I was in a really good place in Putnam, and then having to up and leave was extremely hard. But I believe now I'm getting back to where I'm getting back to myself.
Yeah.
You know, it's taken a while, but I'm getting back there.
I wanted to bring that up because I wanted you to share maybe a little bit about God's will in your life and just what you would share with our audience about that part of it. Like, what's it? And obviously, that's been a challenge of saying, "Hey, listen, God, I'm going to listen. I'm going to let go, and I'm going to listen to you in this moment," because obviously that wasn't something that you were. The move wasn't something you were gung ho about, but obviously the life that you and Cody are living, that's something that's a big picture, right? And the sacrifices that have to be made to do that. Talk to me about a little bit about God's will in your world and how He has kind of revealed some things for you.
Yeah, so I mean, things were not immediate. When I kind of was like, God, if I'm following what you want me to do, why are things going so bad so soon? Sure. And it was one of those things where I was kind of devastated because I was like, I listened to you, because at first I told South Carolina no. Like, I told them no, and then a week later had a change in heart. God was like, I need you to go. So I went, and for about 2.5 years, I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, why are things going bad? Is it me? Like, is it, you know, and it just, to me, it wasn't a good fit. But at the end of the day, things are finally getting better. And I think that's when God's finally revealing, you know, maybe I needed you in those 2 years for a reason, whether it was for me or whether it was for somebody else, because I have met a lot of great people in the past 2 years. Like, not all of it was bad, you know? So it's just one of those things where I've really had to, like, put my trust in Him. And, you know, one of the big things that me and Cody wanted to do was find a church, which I was the same way in Putnam. I was like, I need a church, because I grew up in church, and it wasn't just I grew up in church. I grew up in a church where I was loved by everybody. You know, it was my community. They really helped me. And I knew finding a church in Putnam I would find my people, which I did. And then now I found a church, and they're becoming my people. You know, so if anything, the best advice, I mean, ahead of trusting God, is find a church. Find a church that's a good fit for you. And you may have to go to 2 and 3. That's what we had to do.
Yep.
Because sometimes the first church you go to might not feel right. I mean, I kind of compare it to picking a college. You know,
Absolutely
like
it is.
you walk on campus and you might not feel right. Well, it's the same way with the church. Not saying the church was bad.
No, but there's a vibe.
That's right. It's a vibe. So now we have finally found a church and a pastor and people of that church that we just really feel loved, and we love going there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. I mean, and a lot of our audience. So I'm gonna imagine that the majority of our audience is a believer in faith of some kind,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's our God, some God, right? So we're all kind of have to, as human beings in this world, we gotta step out on faith.
Yeah.
At some point in our lives.
Right.
And sometimes it can be on a minuscule level, and sometimes it can be on a bigger scale like this.
Right.
Right. And so, okay, so you go through that process, right? You're on this side of the tough waters, if you will, on that front, at least in that phase.
Yeah, in that phase.
So now you've landed a job at Erskine College.
Yeah.
This is obviously a softball/baseball podcast, mostly softball.
Yeah.
Tell us about where you are right now. And is it the dream job? Is it close to it? Give me the feels of being able to say I am a coach at Erskine College.
Yeah, so first off, I never expected it to happen. Like whenever I changed schools and I got the new job at the school, I told them, I don't want to coach. I want to focus on my master's, which that was like the end all be all in my eyes. Like I'm just going to teach PE and not coach, work on my master's. And then, a lot of people ask me, why Erskine? And I'm like, well, I went there 10, 11 years ago. I played for Coach Hawkins. So it was one of those things where I didn't feel like I already had my foot in the door, but I already knew her.
Right.
And, and she had other people that were up for the job, and I don't know how it worked out. I don't know how it all just like fell together, but, she asked me to come on part-time, and my response was, I still have this teaching job, and somehow we made it work. And being an assistant for her, I will say, has been kind of a dream job. It has been, because, not only am I at that level, which I'm loving, by the way, nothing against high school or anything, but I'm loving being around those age of the kids.
Right.
And I'm loving the recruiting process, and I love learning from her. Like I love just learning in general. I feel like I've always been that type of person where I just want to learn as much as possible. And
sure.
I even tell people at showcases, I'm like, become a lifelong learner. Want to learn for the rest of your life, whether it's on the field or in the classroom. And I truly feel like I've always loved school, not only, teaching at a school, but I like being in school. I don't know. It's just something about growing knowledge and being able to apply that to every aspect of life, not just softball.
Sure.
So
what's been the biggest difference in what you've seen on the collegiate level, aside from, obviously the potential skill set differences, but aside from that, what's been the biggest changes you've seen from high school to college?
So I would say, as far as like a team aspect, just the diversity. Like we have a girl from Pennsylvania, we have girls from Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. I believe that covers like all the states. If I'm leaving somebody out, I'm sorry. But the diversity, like they're all coming, like, whereas at a high school level, you somewhat may have, in the same pod of people,
right?
Or how you know what I'm trying to say.
From the same city, pretty much, or from the same, at least the state.
And for the most part, they've known each other.
Right.
Whereas these girls, you're bringing in 10 new freshmen who are from totally different aspects of life, from different households.
Right.
They were raised differently. And so piecing that together, it's challenging, but I love it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like I love being able to explain to people, well, maybe this is why they're like that, and finding the positive of that, because I think that's the hardest part for them.
Right.
I mean, I remember coming in as a freshman and having all of these different upperclassmen specifically, and it was different. You know, it's a lot different than my little single A high school team that I played for,
Sure.
and even my travel team. I
Yeah.
mean, I loved all the girls on my travel team, but we were all different.
Mhm.
But I think that's what made us us, and so that's probably the biggest challenge, or not challenge, but just trying to
navigate through that.
Yeah.
And I think that's
It's like a
interesting.
puzzle.
Yeah, I think it's cool, really cool that you brought that up because, again, when you think about high school ball, you know, those kids have been together for years,
Mhm.
right? And we talk, you know, and as a travel ball coach, we talk about chemistry so much,
Yeah.
right? And you can typically see the travel ball teams out there who have been together for years,
Yeah.
right? And so, and on a college level, you're really you have a new team every year.
Yeah, literally.
Right? I mean, so there's seniors always graduating, and typically there's always freshmen coming in.
Right.
And because of that, you're having to reestablish chemistry.
Yes.
Every year.
Every single year. Because not only do you might have, 80% of the players coming back and 10 more people coming in, but even those people changed over the summer.
Right.
Or either they're just in different aspects of life. Like the juniors are now becoming seniors. Like, what am I going to do after senior year? Am I going straight into grad school? Am I going into like getting a job? Or some don't get a job, which is okay.
Sure.
You know, it's whatever fits for them, but figuring out that fit. But I love it, and I love seeing the aha moments of those 20 and 21-year-olds,
Yep.
just like I did, and I still do being a high school teacher. I still love seeing those aha moments or those light bulb moments where they finally get it. Well, I love, like, on the drive up here, I had one of my seniors that just graduated from Erskine, and she called me, and she was a psychology major, and I'm sure she won't mind me talking about her.
Okay.
But she calls me, and we talked about before she left, she had a totally different plan. I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then on the way up here, she called me, and her plan has completely changed. And I was like, girl, that's awesome. But I never would have expected her to say that. But for her to call me and like want to talk to me about that, and it was about her becoming a teacher.
Yeah.
Never would have thought she would become a teacher. But I'm so glad. You know, it's just so awesome that she called me and talked to me about that. So I love those moments, and I can't wait for more of those moments. So
I think it's important. I mean, because we were sitting at the game the other day, and we were talking about this, even from Coach Hawkins' perspective, obviously your perspective as well. Us as coaches, when you're the first or second call that your players make about life things, whether it's good or bad,
right?
You know, I think that's a testament to who you are in their world, right? And I think that's a blessing that we always want to guard, right? And because I don't take that for granted at all. You know what I mean? Having players come to you even about stuff you didn't know that you needed to know, or stuff that you don't want to know really.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes even, but you're there to be almost even a life coach.
That's right.
At times as well. Yeah.
When I tell all of my girls, even the ones that I coached 5-6 years ago, when I tell them I'm here for you, I'm always here for you, and I love you.
Sure.
I mean it. Like, I mean it from the bottom of my heart, and they know they can always call me. They know they can always text me, even if it's just to check in, or, now that, I'm expecting. I've had several players from 5 and 6 years ago FaceTime me and be so excited for me, and I'm like, gosh, that makes me so happy to know that I made that it's not that I just made that much of an impact, that they cared that much for me.
Right.
Like, not only do I care for them, and they know that, but they care for me enough as a 30-year-old woman for them to call me and be crying over FaceTime because I'm expecting,
That's huge.
So, yeah, I mean,
it's huge. That's the
best.
The cycle of life right there, man. That's a beautiful place to be. So, you said on the way up here earlier. So for those who don't remember, because I'm pretty sure I brought this up like 3 or 4 times along the show, that we brought our travel softball team out to Oklahoma City to see the Women's College World Series, which we're going to get to that here in the next segment, because that was exciting times.
Yeah.
But we brought 12 players here, and my family and a couple of coaches. And so, like I mentioned before, Fern coached with us early on, and so she returns on this trip, which I'm so grateful for because it's always a great family reunion, basically.
Yes.
But we're in this next segment here. We're going to jump into kind of that. The fan experience a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about the game, just kind of what we witnessed. I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Fern, I want to ask you one more question of from the jump that you've taken from high school coaching to collegiate coaching. If you said, hey, this is one, maybe not even the biggest piece of advice, but a nugget you would give high schoolers making that transition as a high school senior to a college freshman athlete, because there is a difference there between being a common student and a college athlete, right? Just in terms of the workload. So if you had to say, hey, here's one piece of advice I would give the young ladies out there, what would you say?
Yeah, so I actually had, and I think one part of it is out there right now, the portal is a big deal. Like I even had at a showcase not too long ago, I had a travel ball coach come up to me and say, what do you say to these travel ball girls who are basically afraid of the portal?
Right.
You know, if they're up against transfers. I think my biggest advice, and it's easier said than done.
Sure.
Don't be afraid to go in there and show your stuff. Like, don't be afraid to go in and go against somebody that came out of the portal or go against a senior. Because, I mean, you see Ella Parker and
oh my gosh,
and Pickerington, you know, I think they had a huge part of Oklahoma's win.
All tournament team.
Yeah. So I feel like, again, it's easier said than done. Don't be afraid to go in and show your stuff. Like, don't be afraid to go in and try to beat out an upperclassman. We tell our upperclassmen all the time, you better get it together, because if that freshman comes in and the freshman is better, you're going to be on the bench, and it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter what your grades are. It's not going to matter, you know, how long you've been here, how long you played that position. Your batting average from last season is not going to matter. If that freshman comes in and beats you out, especially, you know, throughout, you know, not necessarily throughout the fall, but, you know, you wait until we get into our actual season halfway through and whose stats are better.
Yep.
You know, it is what it is. So to the freshmen out there, don't be afraid of the portal. You know, don't be afraid of, you know, I'm up against somebody that's coming out of that's transferring out of the portal.
Right.
And go in and do your very best on the field, which that should be the mindset anyway. But I feel like sometimes freshmen might come in and feel timid or scared and like, oh, I don't want to take her position. No, you want to take her position. Like that
100%.
That should be your mindset. Like you should want to go in and be like, you know, I don't care that she's 21. You know, I'm 17, but here's what I can do.
And the reality typically is that coaches, I'd like to say on any level, but I know that's not the case, but at least on the collegiate level, it's about production. That's the bottom line, right? What is going to produce results for the team.
That's right.
It's not about if I like you that much, or I don't like you that much.
That's right.
Right. It's not about the other, you know, factors there. It's who's going to produce for this team, and in a positive way.
That's right.
So I think that's a big deal. All right, we're gonna take a quick break.
Okay.
However, before we take that quick break, again, she mentioned another quick tidbit there. She is expecting.
Yeah.
And our entire softball family is stoked about that. How far along right now?
16 weeks.
16 weeks.
16.
And, you know, you guys have heard me talk about my daughter, Aubrey. She's 4.5 years old. She turns 5 in November, which is insane to think about. And it sounds like baby O'Brien's going to be somewhere around Aubrey's birthday there in November, right? Thanksgiving-ish?
Yep. The day before Thanksgiving is the due date. But like Bethany said, you know, they could have the same birthday if it decides. I say it because I don't know the gender yet. I get laughed at about. I'm like it, and I'm like, I just don't know the gender, so I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. I mean, it's the size of a pear right now according to my app, so we can call it a pear. But
fair enough.
But
That'd be a funny nickname.
Bethany said that they could potentially have the same birthday, which would be cool.
Yeah, and listen, they come when they want to come.
That's right.
That's the reality. Now you say don't know the gender. Are you gonna want to know the gender, or you don't care? Like,
we're gonna find out 4th of July. I wanted to do like a lake theme, so we were looking at what kind of theme we could do for that, and it's going to be fishing theme. So it's going to be, is it a fish he or a fish she?
I love it. I love it. All right, on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back jumping into the fan experience with you guys, as well as what we were able to witness in Games 1 and Game 2 of that championship series with Texas and Oklahoma. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So hopefully you've enjoyed this thus far. I'm just kind of getting to connect with Fern here, and get a little bit of a glimpse of who she is and why I love and appreciate her so much. But we're going to jump into why we came to Oklahoma City in the first place. So we're obviously, this is actually, if you're watching this on video, this is my first show ever outdoors.
Really?
Yes. I've always done them inside, even when I've been off on vacation. So anyway, hopefully it's working out so far. It's a little warm here in OKC, but definitely a nice little breeze that we're getting, and kind of a little shaded so far. But anyway, all that to be said, fan experience. We got to witness the entirety of the championship series between Texas and Oklahoma,
which was awesome.
Thoughts as a fan, being a fan of the game, being in that atmosphere, like, what was it like for you?
Well, I felt a lot of pressure whenever I had a lot of OU fans like, who are you here for? And I'm like, I'm pulling for the underdog, but I'm here for softball.
Yep.
That was my answer to every OU fan, because we didn't have on orange, and I was planning on wearing this shirt, but again, like I was pulling for Texas. I wanted them to win it for their first time in school history. But OU's good. I mean, I'm a Patty Gasso fan.
Yep.
Nothing against OU at all. But I came for softball. I came to see good quality softball. So I did feel a little under pressure there.
Yeah.
And then the second game there, I wore my SEC shirt because I told you, like, they're both coming to the SEC.
Yep.
So I was like, that'll be a good fit. People might think I'm crazy, but it is what it is.
I dig it.
But I enjoyed it. It was a great atmosphere, a lot of red, but I guess when the school's 21 minutes away, you're going to get a lot of OU fans. A lot of horns down. I saw that.
Yep.
A lot of horns down on the big screen, and then the people. But overall, like, you could tell the OU fans were really for their softball team, which they have a reason to be.
No doubt about it.
So, I mean, it was just a great experience. A packed house for sure.
Yeah.
So
here's the thing. I guess I was a little shocked though that it felt like 90+% OU fans.
Oh, absolutely.
Which and again, I know they're close by, and you know, Texas is only a state away.
Yeah.
Although it's a very big state, but
I was shocked there wasn't more orange.
Yes.
Yeah,
like
I was shocked.
You saw the block of orange of basically family members right behind the Texas dugout, and then it was almost like little sprinkles here and there, and our entire softball team was probably a Texas fan, for the championship series. I think they wanted to see Texas or whatever. But so again, like, we were all kind of rooting for the underdog, but much like you, like, I could care less who won necessarily. Right. I just want to see a good softball.
That's right.
And it's funny because some of the girls were like picking. They're like, "Why are you clapping for OU?" I'm like, "I'm clapping for anything good that happens."
Exactly. If it's
I'm clapping for softball.
Yeah. If it was a good play, I mean, whether it was OU or it was mainly OU.
Yeah.
But there were a few good plays by Texas, and I was just like, I mean, it was a good play. Respect it.
Yeah.
And I'll even say that on the field with our girls, or I'll say it at a showcase. Like, if something good just happened, I'm like, you got to respect that. You got to respect that diving play. You have to respect the quick turn at two. You got to. I mean, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't respect it and get mad about it, or, now, and I did tell somebody, I was like, now, if Georgia was playing here, it'd be a little bit different.
Yes. If it's your team.
Like, if it's my team, then I'd be decked out. I'd be doing all the chants. I'd be, all that. But, I was there for softball.
Let it be LSU there. I would have.
Exactly.
I would have been a hard person to watch the game with. I promise you that.
You would have found your way to the backstop somehow. You would have found your way a lot closer.
Absolutely. Well, talking about that real quick, like, I think that stadium, since they've added both of the upper decks on each side of the foul territories there, it holds like 13,000 almost.
Yeah. I think it was 12,356 or something like that.
a record.
Yeah.
Right, which is insane. In terms of the growth of the game. Like I think it's the last few. I don't know about this year yet because baseball super regionals is in space right now. But the last few years, the softball has outrated the men's game, which is and I'm a guy, so obviously no offense to the men's game, but I just think that's a testament to how much the game of softball has grown. Like what's on that aspect of it, like how does that make you feel as a former ball player, as a current coach in the softball arena? Like give me your thoughts on that.
I think it's huge for women's sports, not just softball, but like basketball right now is through the roof. I mean, not just college basketball, but people are watching WNBA now. Like there's, and so I think we texted a little bit about this, but the growth of women's sports altogether has been huge. I think they did a post on it, but 2 million viewers viewed the Women's College World Series games.
Really?
And then that for game 1. Game 2 was 2.5. So even for a team that's won it, 3 times and then now a 4, you still had 2.5 million people wanting to watch.
Yep.
So that's huge because people could have easily said, oh, it's just OU and Texas again. Like you're here to, because 2 years ago when we were here, we watched Texas and Oklahoma State. It was Oklahoma State, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Texas ended up winning. Game.
Yeah. Texas ended up winning, but people could have easily said, oh, it's just the same teams, but people decided to watch. And I don't think even a million watched because of OU or because of Texas. They watched because of softball, because of the game, because of the girls and how they've represented the sport. I mean, it's awesome. And I think it's only going to grow. And like there's more pro teams coming to be for softball.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
And I love the Athletes Unlimited and what they're doing with softball. And they're doing a lot, not just with softball, but with, volleyball and all these other, different sports for women.
Huge.
So I love it.
Huge. It's a beautiful thing, man. And I feel like, it's been a long time coming, but it's here.
Yeah.
And I think I said this on the last show, like the best way to support women's sports is to go support it with your time, your money, energy, turn on the TV, right? If you don't have money, like hop on the couch and watch it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, in game 1, what I thought was really cool is Coach Jay and I were sitting there, and right behind me, there was a little boy, maybe 10, 11, maybe 12 years old, yelling for the teams. And I'm like, that's so cool that we have a 12-year-old little boy hollering at this women's game when usually it's just the little girls, but now we have little boys pulling for them. And, it may have been because they're an OU fan but I love that.
Either way, you got a 12-year-old boy engaged.
I turned around. Oh yeah. And he was kind of savage too. Like he was not holding back. Somebody got up to bat for Texas and he was like, shit, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just so mean, like just savage. And I was like, I love it, but that's not very sportsmanlike.
So speaking of borderline savage, let's talk about the unapologetic celebrations of OU, because I think that Patty Gasso has truly leaned into that.
Yeah.
And to me, watching 14 innings of softball in person, it was pretty dang evident.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I loved her interview when she kind of explained herself. She kind of said, the way she put it is what she has learned through coaching all of these years is that to allow the players to be who they are. She said years ago, I wouldn't have allowed some of that. I wouldn't have allowed some of that, crap is what she said.
Right.
But she said, now I've learned to let them embrace who they are. Now, in my opinion, I think some of it was a little distasteful, but at the same time, it's like, it's the championship game. It's the championship series.
All the emotions.
Now, if it was game 1 or game 2, I'd be like, okay, let's dial it back a little bit.
Right.
But in my opinion, there was nothing that they did that was just disrespectful.
Right.
I think disrespectful and distasteful are kind of two different things.
They are.
So I think that's great that Patty Gasso brought that up and said, I'm allowing them to be who they are, and that's something that these kids have taught me. In this generation especially. So I was like, wow, like there you go. She's a lifetime learner.
Right.
Like she is she's going back and being like, I'm not going to stick to the same old me. She's adapting to the players that she has now and that she's getting.
Right.
So
I think
awesome.
that's amazing because she's won 7 national titles.
Yep.
This was year 30 for her coaching.
Yeah.
Or at least at OU.
Yeah.
And she's like, I can learn from these 18 to 24-year-olds.
Yep, that's right.
I mean, that's insane.
Yep.
I love that. So, okay, so back more into the game. So, at face value, what we witnessed for 14 innings right there, game 1 is oddly enough, OU scored 8 runs both games.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2 felt way closer than game 1 did.
Yeah.
But for you, what did you see on the field between these two teams? I mean, because they faced each other 4 times prior to the championship series, right? Texas won this regular season series, which was big because that was OU's first conference loss or conference series loss since 2011.
Right.
And then OU ended up winning the conference championship tournament.
Yeah.
Right. So they were 2-2 going into this stretch here of the championship series. They know each other very, very well. Obviously, the Red River rivalry, that's a huge deal. What did you see from your perspective, like with your own eyes?
So obviously, I believe Texas just underperformed. I think, when it comes to at the plate, I mean, I looked at their stats. In all, they had 15 strikeouts. Texas had 15 strikeouts. Now, going against really good pitching, that's it's kind of give or take, but I feel like there were a lot of at-bats, and I know there were multiple at-bats that I looked at you and I was like, why? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, where is the adjustment? That's one thing that we talk, it's easier for me to sit here and say, why aren't they making that adjustment than being there facing that pitcher?
Right.
So I feel like they underperformed. I was disappointed with Bella Dayton a little bit. She got on base once, maybe
she
twice.
She became a fan favorite of mine.
Yeah,
too,
yeah. I mean, I loved her 2 years ago, and she's just kind of grown on me with like her performances, and she's been an asset for them all season. I feel like up until when it mattered. So, like I said, I just feel like they underperformed at the plate. Yeah. I really do. I mean, OU ended up having only 6 strikeouts.
Really?
So yeah. And I think two one game and 6 the other game. But at the end of the day, I just feel like one was better at the plate than the other because there were a few errors, but I don't think errors came down to it. I think it came down to the approach at the plate. Were they not prepared for the pitchers? Because it's not like they were new. It's not like the pitchers were new. So that was my only thing. Their mindset in the box.
Yeah. I point to a play or a moment in game 2 where the junior, I think she's batting in the 8-hole, Sydney Sanders. Bases are loaded. It's a 2-strike count. I think it may have been 1-2-2-2. It wasn't full, I don't believe.
Yeah. And
she rips a double into the opposite field gap. I felt the shift right there for Texas because I honestly felt like they had a shot in game 2.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
They definitely did.
Like OU comes out, punches him in the mouth immediately, I think, 2-0.
Yeah.
And Mia Scott, wait, was that game 1 maybe?
Game 1 is when they had the home runs.
Home runs, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, game 2 though, it was a closer situation early on.
Yes,
like it was a tighter game.
It was.
I think even through 4 maybe innings, it was either tied or neck and neck or whatever. Like they were kind of trading blows there, and then it kind of catapulted there. And I felt like Sydney Sanders said, no, I'm going to make a difference in this moment.
Yes.
And she clears the bases with a double, whatever, and then I felt like kind of the rest was history after that point. But what do you believe in momentum?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so because I've talked to a lot of people out there, even in the sports world, not just softball, but it's like, oh, momentum's just a state of mind or whatever. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think there's different parts of the games where you can get different momentum. One thing that we tried to harp on this past season, whether it worked or not, was win the inning. So, and when I say that is, let's take it, one inning at a time. So whether that pitcher is trying to gain momentum by getting getting ahead in the count, or whether it's to, maybe I'm not going to be able to strike out this batter. Let me just get her to pop it up or to get a little dribbler, get the out, find the out. I mean, you heard Beaver from Alabama say, I was just trying to put it in the zone and letting my defense work.
Yep.
That's one way to gain momentum.
Yep.
Okay, so that's, when you get in the box, doing your job in the box, whether it's a walk, hit by pitch, base hit, just punch it through the infield or put down a bunt.
Right.
Those are all ways to gain momentum. Now, let's say your first inning doesn't go well and you lose that inning. You still have another chance the next inning to make a difference, gain the momentum. And to me, momentum is also a mindset thing. If you have momentum going, whether you're on offense or defense, then that's going to help your mindset later on.
To make a big difference.
Right. So whereas if you don't believe in momentum, you don't believe in all that, you might have that home run, later on but that home run might be the momentum.
Yeah.
So, or the robbing a home run.
Oh my gosh, man. The
robbing
outfield
a home
play.
run. Right. That could be the momentum because of your defense.
Yeah.
So people can say what they want, but I believe in it. I believe in, trying to, I also am a firm believer in scoring first. I've always been that type of coach. Let's score first. Or if we lose the first inning, let's try to score first in the second inning.
Right.
Let's play such good defense that they can't score.
Right.
And then let's go in and score ourselves.
I think sometimes
keep it simple.
Right. And you watch the game sometimes. You talk about the defensive side of the ball. I think that's cool because sometimes, man, the plays that are made on defense are worth just as much as an RBI on offense.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're taking away runs from teams that way. Those robs. I mean, I think some of our team ended up getting on camera for when Texas right fielder Maloney comes up. She makes the crazy play. She's making this like super wild face or whatever at the end of it. But like that was a run for Oklahoma.
Right.
That was taken away.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, that's just as good as batting somebody in on the other side of the ball.
Right. And some might say, well, then why didn't that create momentum for when they went in the box? Well, I can't speak for those players. I don't know why. I mean, the pitching was good.
Yeah.
So
listen, man.
Like you can say what you want, but when you're facing good pitching, it's hard. I didn't understand why some of them were so out in front, but I guess when they're throwing heat 1 minute and then throwing a changeup the next, I mean, honestly, I would just tell my girls, try to put the bat on it somehow. Like instead of just swinging and missing with your head out, so out in front, like touch it to foul it off to get another chance. I mean, that's just battling in the most minute way.
Absolutely.
So,
and I think that's important to bring up because it's not always about blowing it by somebody.
No.
If you can spin the ball. So
yes.
I mean, we talked about this the other day. So Erskine College, where you're coaching right now at the D2 level, what do you see most of pitching wise from a velo standpoint?
Honestly, just a lot of movement. It doesn't come down to throwing heat. I mean, yeah, you're going to face those batters that throw heat, but like I've said before, I feel like it's easier to time people up. You go to travel ball games or you go to showcases and you can see people hitting fast pitching that's going right down the middle or even inside and outside. But if that ball is straight 1 minute and then it's going east or west 1 minute, I mean, that's what's tricking you.
Yeah.
That's when you have to be a good batter and know which way that ball is going or the better batters are able to pick up, or the better batters are in the dugout trying to look for how the pitcher is gripping the ball.
Sure.
Until you face that pitcher who doesn't really change her grip. So then you don't know.
So weird.
Yeah,
because you can do that, man. Hats off to him.
Like like as a coach, I'm watching and I'm like, we're trying to pick up her grips, and pitching is something I'm still learning. That's something. Good thing I have Coach Hawkins to kind of learn. Like, okay, well, how do you hold this? Like, how can I try to pick up this pitch? But the batters that want to know what's coming are watching the pitchers and because pitchers have to pitch a certain way in order to make the ball go a certain way.
Right.
So if you are that batter that wants to be able to hit the good pitchers, you're trying to look for that.
Exactly.
Now, on a stage like the Women's College World Series, when you have 12,000 people, it might just become a reaction thing. It might just become, but I feel like that's where Texas kind of underperformed at.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I agree. Yeah, and the bombs were there for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I mean, they put up 16 runs in 2 games.
Yeah.
And you watch the at bats, you watch the approaches. I firmly believe in momentum.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it was OU's games to lose.
Yeah.
Because of their momentum. You just and if here's a cool thing to me, I even felt like they stole momentum at times.
Yes.
When they didn't even have it, it was they stole it off of a Jada Coleman walk.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm like, things are going fairly all right for Texas in game 2.
Yep.
And Jada Coleman gets walked, or there's a play in the field and it's like, here they go again.
Yeah.
You feel that. So I want to bring up momentum on the flip side of it, where I felt like there was a point where Texas lost it.
Yeah.
You probably know where I'm going with this. So
Yeah.
this is the 6th inning of game 2.
Mm-hmm.
They're down by 2 runs, and bless her heart, Mia Scott, she's been incredible.
Yeah, so good.
For Texas all these years, and she rounds first base. I don't think she had a plan in mind at all.
Yeah.
There.
I don't either. I don't know. The ball was too close, and yeah, the ball was on the ground, but literally all it took was a girl picking it up and literally, yeah. And as a player, as a coach, you get into a rundown. Like, you get in a pickle somehow, like you take off towards second, run away from the ball.
Right.
Instead, she just kind of tries to not walk back to first, but she tried to like hurry back to first, not even dive, no. Get on the ground, nothing. And so I could see where she was trying to be aggressive.
Right.
Like, I could see the aggressive, athlete in her wanting to, their second base is open. I got a runner on third. Let me try to like play a little bit. But
you got to sell out to it,
though. Yeah. Like, you've got to either go or get back, and not just get back with 2 quick steps. You've got to get away,
get
dive
back for your life.
Right. Because all that first baseman had to do was catch and tag. I mean, it was that quick.
It was the oddest thing.
Right. It was. And
I videoed that at bat, and I caught some of that action on the camera, whatever, and I didn't. At first, I didn't even realize what happened. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on right here? Because they scored a run off of it.
Right.
So the run scored before she was tagged out. So now they're down 5-4, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, all right, they got first and third, 2 outs. Their 3-hole hitter thinks coming up to bat, or whomever it may be. And here we go. Yep. Maybe they got a shot to tie this thing up late.
Yep.
And we can go into the 7th with a tie ball game or better for Texas. But but I guess I ask you the question as a coach of many years. You have a play like that, just from an advice giving standpoint. You have a play, you have a moment like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it hasn't been on that scale of national championship, game on the line.
Right.
You're putting your team in a tough spot going into the very last inning. But I'm sure you've had those moments where players have had those base running blunders, or a blunder in general.
Yeah.
And they're now having to mentally deal with that.
Yes.
Right. You, as a former player, now a coach, what's your encouragement to them at this point where, because for me as Scott, the whole world, 2.5 million people saw that.
Literally. And,
maybe people aren't thinking about that moment except for the folks who, like us, are kind of analyzing momentum or whatever. But how, as her coach, are you helping her get through that on the back end of that?
Well, first off, what a lot of people need to do, instead of screaming at her about it and like pointing fingers at her saying, this is your fault, X, Y, Z, number one, they were behind to begin with. Okay. Yeah. So it's not like it was the bottom of the 7th, game ending type of deal. Now I think they lost a little momentum, but another thing for people to remember is that she is still a young adult. Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't say teenager. She's out of her teenage years, but I think she made a mistake. Yeah. She's not. Pro players make mistakes
all the time.
I mean, there was a Braves outfielder that tried to like kneel down and catch a ball like right here and missed it. So it's like, even pro people make mistakes. Even the pro adults make mistakes.
Right.
So first off, remember that she's still young. Like, I don't know what was going through her head, but instead of yelling and all of that, I would have, honestly, even in that, I would have just put my arm around her and I would have been like, look, you got to own what you did. You got to, and then learn from it.
Yeah.
If you're going to the next level and you're going to play, learn from it. Or if you're going and you're going to be a coach, you can use that as an example.
Yeah.
So I feel like as a coach, you want to be mad, and I'm sure I would have been disappointed. I mean, I absolutely would have been disappointed, as well as her teammates. But I truly hope her teammates did not in a way, hold it against her.
Play the blame game
because
type
at the
thing,
same time, she's one of the reasons they're there.
Yep.
So it's like one mistake. She was trying to be aggressive. It was an honest mistake.
Yeah.
And sometimes, again, playing in front of 12,000 people, she didn't know 2.5 million people were watching on
Sure.
TV, but she's still young. She's still a young adult. In college, yes, it's part of the game.
Yep.
So, and it's not like it was a huge play OU made. It wasn't.
No.
I mean, it was literally like a pick up the ball, and I mean, it wasn't good. I'm not saying that, but as a coach, you put your arm around her and be like, "Hey, that was stupid, but learn from it. Like, learn from, and we move on." That's right. Like,
because we need your head here.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So, all right. So before we take a quick break, I want to end on the part of this conversation. I want to just talk about the energy, and I felt like the energy from both squads was high.
Yeah.
They make a big play, they're making a big deal out of it. They make something small happen, they're making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
And I'll just be honest with you, that's one thing that I struggle with as a coach in the travel ball world, of sometimes getting our players to understand that aspect of it, of and I keep referencing it because it's so polarizing, but a Jada Coleman walk from an energy standpoint feels as big as a home run.
That's right.
Right? Why is that important?
Yeah.
At that level or on any level? Why is the energy, and maybe it's not just Jada Coleman, the way she reacts to a walk, but the dugout and just the energy, why is that important to you?
It's a free base. I mean, it's a free base, and that's what a lot of like high schoolers may not understand. I've seen so many players get so mad when they get walked.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me. I mean, it's not hard for me to explain to them. I explain it, but it's so hard for them to understand why I wanted to hit. But you could have easily just struck it out and be sitting in the dugout. But now you're on base and you give us a chance to score.
Yep.
So I think depending on what type of player they are, depending on how their coach is, just reiterating that, there's nothing wrong with a walk. Yeah, you could have bombed it out. You could have got a double. You could have got a triple, whatever. But whatever the case may be, you just found a way to help us score, potentially. Yep. So what's wrong with that? And then most of the time they don't have a response to that, because in their head it's like, oh, well, hitting is more fun. Yeah, but so is scoring and winning the game.
Yes.
So, or even getting hit by a pitch. So, like, some of the girls that got hit by a pitch, you saw them immediately smile. Like, of course, they're thinking in my head, well, gosh, that hurt. Or,
sure.
Gosh, I wanted to hit. But now I'm on base.
I'm on base. Yeah. I'm giving my chance.
Yeah.
Or either, a chance to win.
Or either in some cases, you're turning around getting a runner for you, and you're like, oh, somebody faster is going in for me.
Huge.
So here, they've got to understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll reiterate it till I'm blue in the face.
Same here. And I always talk about having that attitude of gratitude and just appreciation for whatever happens.
Right.
And, again, I know in the travel ball world, we play all day long. It's a long day, it's a 14-hour day or whatever it may be. But even still, my expectation as a coach, and maybe it's slightly unrealistic, I don't know, but my expectation is that your energy needs to be where it needs to be, even in Game 6 of the day.
Yes.
Because of that momentum. And if your energy's up, that means the other team has to match it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then in some ways you're stealing runs. You're stealing, moments, opportunities to gain an advantage.
Right.
So anyway, we're gonna wrap this up here in just a little bit on the back end of this break and talk about just a couple of folks on the all tournament team that we felt like deserve a little bit of kudos, and share a couple of things with you, and we'll be out of here. All right, guys, welcome back to the show one last time. We're going to get you out of here, but before we do, I just wanted to take a moment. I think there were 10, maybe 12, something like that, all tournament players here in the Women's College World Series that were highlighted. And I just wanted to point out a couple, because you're always impressed with, the players who show up when the lights come on, right? And one little bonus highlight obviously is Kelly Maxwell, man. Like, most outstanding player.
Yep.
Under to me, under an incredible amount of pressure.
Yeah.
Because she had to. One, she transferred in-state rivals, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma.
Right.
And she came into Oklahoma and had to be the ace.
Mm-hmm.
And to go through that conference, which is a gauntlet with Texas and Oklahoma State in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then do what she did. So shout out to her. But
do you know why she transferred?
No, do you?
I looked it up.
Okay.
The retirement of the OSU pitching coach, which can't
What?
be mad at her. That's what it said when I
Wow.
looked it up. I looked up, why did she transfer from OSU, and it said because John, gosh, I'll butcher his last name, but the pitching coach retired from OSU.
I did not know that.
Be wrong. I could be wrong, but that's what Google said.
Hey.
So I was like, you can't be mad at her for doing that. You can't be mad at her for transferring. I mean, I'm not nothing against OSU. They beat OU twice in the regular season. So, but I was curious to know, so I looked it up.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's a valid reason.
Yes.
Yes. And I think that makes sense because throughout the course of the season, I've heard where it's either Rocha or Roca, the pitching coach for OU, mm-hmm. has really helped her develop more pitches, like use things a little bit differently. So she's gotten something out of it.
That out there.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's cool. So, wow, shout out to Kelly Maxwell, man. Just what she was able to pull off was really, really impressive to me. I mean, I felt like she threw against Florida, over 150 pitches against Florida, mm-hmm. and because of the weather delays, they had to play the day before the national championship, and then she turned around and threw game 1 against Texas, and she hit triple digits in that one as well.
Yeah. So
most outstanding player, well deserved. All right, so who's one of your highlights that you want to share on the all tournament team?
Well, Rothrock, freshman.
Yeah.
So what I loved about, and I was pulling for Florida, SEC team, so what I loved about Rothrock is not only did I love how she pitched, like I loved like her movement and all of that, but I loved it. If you talk to her upperclassmen, mm-hmm. how they just embraced her being in the circle, how they lifted her up when she needed to be lifted up. I mean, she handled the pressure very well to be a freshman. But I loved how her upperclassmen just kind of took her under their wing, which is what it should be. You know, it should be that way. And for a lot of teams, it was like that with freshmen. But that was just a really big deal for me. You know, I loved how, Skylar Wallace, like specifically, she was just like, how are you dealing with a freshman in the circle? She was asked one day, and she was just like, she's our girl. Like she's part of our family now. It doesn't matter if she's a freshman or sophomore, but she's our pitcher.
She's a Gator.
She's one of our pitcher. Yeah, she's a Gator. So we're gonna support her whether she does good or bad. And she made it that far, and so I cannot wait to see her in the future. Like I'm so excited to see her next year.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm a non-Gator fan because I'm a Georgia fan.
Right.
So I've always been like, no to the Gators, but I'm a fan now because of mainly Rothrock and Wallace.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I love everything about Skylar Wallace.
The Stanford pitcher, Kennedy, like I absolutely was pulling for her.
Yep.
I don't even really think she got tired towards the end.
No.
I don't think she lost gas. I don't know, but
run support. I think Stanford that would have been. I mean, here's the thing. She had an ERA of under 1.
Yes.
So,
yes.
And you got an ERA of under 1, and the teams that she had to face.
Yes.
They have great offenses.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that, I was really, really impressed by her.
Right. And I love that they highlighted it several times that she played football.
Football, yeah.
Yeah, that she was a guard.
Yeah.
So that showed that she was an offensive guard. It was like
crazy.
Cody, my husband's was offensive guard in college or high school.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's cool.
Yep.
That's cool. Like, well, it was funny because they said that when her dad signed her up for football, her mom thought it was flag football.
Oh boy!
Until I think they went to the first game, and she's decked out in pads. So I was like, "Okay, Dad, like you put a rib protector on her, right?"
Yeah, please.
But
I wonder if Dad knew that Mom thought it was flag football.
Oh, I would love to hear more on that story, but I love that, and I just loved her attitude, like the excitement, and then that one strikeout she had where she got so excited, like her whole mask flew off. I was like, I love that energy.
Absolutely.
Like, we talk about OU and, how some of their celebrations and everything. It's like, I mean, that if she was yelling in my face after a strikeout, I mean, come on now, like,
what do you do?
It's part of the game.
It is.
She knew what pitch she was coming with, and I love that she has a changeup.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of there's some pitchers out there that don't, they may not believe in a changeup. They don't want to throw it because they're like, well, that could get jacked. You know?
Right.
But she threw her changeup. I think they said 9% of the time, and sometimes she would wait until the 5th and 6th inning to throw a changeup.
Yeah.
But when you're just not expecting it, that could be your momentum. Her to throw that changeup that's coming in at 54, which 54 is what you see in like high school balls.
It's crazy.
So
and then she gives you a rise ball at 74.
Yes. Yes. So
yeah, shout out to Kennedy, man.
That's what I loved about her. Like I loved, that changeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ella Parker.
Yeah.
For OU.
Yeah.
You talked about earlier just kind of one of your pieces of advice for freshmen where, come in and be ready.
Yes.
Right? And don't be nervous about the moment. Like come in, do your thing.
Yes.
Ella Parker did that.
Yeah. I think Pickering did too.
Yeah.
Like hitting them out, the way she did.
Yep.
They were definitely assets. 2
freshmen for OU right there. I mean, you've got a freshman batting in your 3-hole.
Yes.
With the lineup that you've got at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Ella Parker, I mean, I just incredibly impressed with her.
Yep.
Pickering, I think, bagging out of the 7-hole, and she was on base all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
So she wasn't even in the field.
Yeah.
So I've come across players that don't want to be a DP because they want to play both sides.
Right.
And for her to embrace her role as a DP and then literally in the dugout the rest of the time, I mean, kudos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kudos to her. Like that goes to show you can be a freshman and come in and you may not be in the field, but you can hit for your pitcher. Or
right.
You can hit for, I know Valerie Cagle would potentially, like she would usually hit for herself,
right.
even if she was pitching. But understanding your role. And I know we just kind of like chatted about that, but understanding that even as a freshman, she could have easily came in and be like, dang, all I'm doing is a DP. Like all I'm doing is hitting.
Right.
But she embraced that. And,
100%.
And she is one of the reasons they won.
No doubt about it.
So
no doubt about it. Every time, it's very rare that you have a freshman that comes up to bat and you're like, I think she's going to do something right here. She's going to do some damage. Like I feared for Texas.
Yeah.
Every time she stepped up to the plate, and I mean, I think she came through the other night.
That's right.
Another time with 2 strikes. So,
that's right.
And I mentioned 2 strikes. I'm always impressed when people hit extra base hits or hit a base at all with 2 strikes, because again, they're doing more than just trying to touch it. Like they're still. One phrase I always use is swing for damage.
Yes.
Like do damage even with 2 strikes.
Yep.
Do damage.
Yeah.
Right. And so, again, I wanted to highlight some of those because I felt like, and everybody on the all-tournament team, I mean, all these players were freaking spectacular. Let's be real about it.
Yeah, for sure.
But it was just cool to really see some of those freshmen, and plus Kennedy's only a sophomore.
Right.
About to be a junior. So
yeah, I'm excited to watch her next year too. Like softball season just ended for
I'm ready
D1,
for it.
And like I'm ready for it to come back.
When do we start again?
Yes.
So, all right, so we're gonna wrap the show up, and I always wrap it up with a thought you should know. Before I do that, I just want to thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for inviting me back on this trip. Like you texted me saying, OKC take 2, and I was like, absolutely, like count me in. I may not know many of the players. We only had 2 girls that I coached 2 years ago.
Yeah, Kinsey and Coco.
Yep. But the rest of them have been awesome.
Yeah.
So
and this has been a really cool adventure. Okay, I mean, scooters.
Yes.
Seemingly always become a part of this.
Yes.
So those, I guess, a little plug for Lime scooters out there. They always come through here in OKC, but man, that always becomes part of the trip.
And I love that they let you ride them past midnight because I said, I've been to cities where I went to jump on a scooter. I was like, oh, a scooter, I have the app.
Yeah.
And I go and it has a big like circle with a line through it. Like, no, it's past the time, like past the curfew. And I'm like, what? So I love that we're able to ride, and we ride right past the police officers at like 1 a.m. And they're like, okay, y'all are cool. Like, I mean,
shout out to OKC, man.
Yes. Like as a city, as a whole, like the people have been spectacular. Even the people on the putt-putt course last night that said, who are y'all pulling for, OU or Texas? And I told them, like, I was pulling for Texas, but I was here for softball. And she was like, oh, yeah, horns down or whatever.
Yeah.
But she was still super nice. And then I told her that we were a softball team and that we were coaches. And the very next thing out of her mouth was, go coaches. Like, Continue to do what you do. Like she was praising us as coaches. So OU people just in general.
Yeah, I've really appreciated
OKC people.
Yeah, I've appreciated the hospitality here. Like
Absolutely.
if you haven't been to Oklahoma City and you're a softball fan and you want to be a part of the environment, OKC is definitely a place to come.
Yes.
So I thought you should know moment.
Okay.
I'll let you share yours first, and just as I always say, like thought you should know moment is something that just we think you should know, and that kind of comes to brain. So what would that be as we wrap up here?
Yeah, so one of the things that I talk about a lot, like at these showcases that I go to for recruiting, is we talk softball, we talk positions, we talk plays, we talk drills and skills, but I'm a teacher, so I want to talk about education for a little bit. Okay. So for those of you that are potentially looking to go to college, whether this is any sport, not just softball, and this can be for men and women, boys and girls.
Yeah.
Make sure you're putting the work in education too. Make sure you're putting in the work in high school right now.
Yeah.
Because there's not one school out there that's not going to want your transcript, first of all. So they're going to want your transcript. Coach Hawkins will flat out tell any recruit that we're looking at, we need your transcript, and we're not going to offer anything until we see a transcript.
Sure.
So make sure that you are taking education. You might go put extra hours in the cage. You might be going to lessons with a trainer or whatever. But if you're struggling in school, it's going to be extremely hard for you in college.
Right.
So, and when you get to college, you still have to remember to put the work in college.
Right.
Like you can be doing so good on the field, but if you're not doing good in the classroom and you become ineligible, you're not going to be able to help us on the field.
Yep.
So, and I mean, that's something that I struggled with personally when I was a student athlete when I got to college.
Right.
In high school, my grades were good. I didn't have to worry. It wasn't really a struggle, but it was a culture shock when I got to college.
Yeah.
And so I struggled big time. My GPA hurt because I didn't think I needed to study. I thought I was just going to get passed along, and that wasn't the case at all.
Sure.
Especially at Erskine. I mean, and that's probably the case at any school.
Tough school there,
yes.
though, right?
So make sure that you're not only putting the work in on the field or extra time for softball or for your sport, whatever that sport may be. Make sure that you're putting in the work in the classroom too. Because you don't want to be the reason you don't get into your dream school or you don't get offered by your dream school is because of something on your transcript.
Sure.
Or when you get to your dream school, you can't play because of your grades.
Yeah.
Or you have to miss practice because of your grades. And if you miss practice, you're not going to play.
It's big.
You might be eligible to play, but if you're not making it to practice and there for all the important stuff and you have to go to your room to study or you have to go to extra time with your professor, it's not going to help you.
Right.
So I feel like that's something that doesn't really get talked about a lot, especially, I know when we were doing travel ball together, we kind of told the girls, make sure you stay ahead of your studies, know, if you need to go do something with school, but it is just as important.
Yep.
Just as important as putting in the extra work off the field.
Because at the end of the day, there's life after softball.
Oh, for sure.
And you have to have a real job or career or whatever.
That's right.
And education is a big piece of that.
That's right.
So, well, my thought you should know moment is somewhat piggybacks off of that, I guess, but more on the field. I would say that I really want all of our listeners, especially ball players, even parents, encourage your kids to lean into being a versatile ball player. Because I feel like so often people get stuck on, hey, I want to play third base.
Yes.
Or I want to play center field.
Yeah.
And I look at the ball field. I don't know, maybe I don't know if I'm the only one or not, but I look at the ball field in kind of 5 areas: a pitcher, a catcher, a corner, a middle infielder, and an outfielder. So in my world, there's 5 positions on the field. And I go, can you play 3 out of those 5?
Yeah.
2 out of those 5 at least. And I feel like at the end of the day, the more versatile you are, the more opportunities you're going to have to be on the field and to ultimately play the game that you love. So, anything on that before we leave?
Yeah, I mean, just from coaching college 1 year, that's something that's been big for us.
Yeah.
You might start at one position at the beginning of the year, but we might, and we had injuries happen where we had to move people around. And you might get stuck somewhere where you're like, oh, I haven't played here since middle school. And you might do really good at it and you just didn't know it. So it's just something to really think about.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I agree. Well, we're going to wrap this show up like we always do. So, guys, at the end of the day, please let everything you do be done in love, because that's truly what makes the world go round. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Fern, thank you again for being a part of this.
Me. Thank you for inviting me back to OKC. Maybe OKC Take 3 next year.
I'm here for it. Don't tempt me with a good time. So,
Me too.
Well, guys, we'll catch you later. We'll see you next time.